Welcome to No Room for Phonies.
Episode 90, Telling Your Story.
So I entitled this More Stories because we just did an episode with Tabitha where we told a lot of stories, and I've been doing a lot of reading about telling stories and the importance of stories. And so the big quote is actually from Seth Godin's new book, The Song of Significance, but it's by Christine Lakasevich, an Algonquin and mixed settler from Algonquin and mixed settler education. And it just says, when we listen, we enter into a relationship, an agreement that we bind ourselves to. In this relationship, we learn how to live in reciprocal respect with all that surrounds us, both the seen and the unseen. We must live in a state of active relationship, not only taking, but also giving back. This giving back may take literal form or manifest itself in observing, learning, and gently interacting. If we listen, those stories are always available to us. The plants, animals, trees, water, air are our patient and willing teachers. We must remain open to this knowledge that is so willingly shared with us so long as we listen. And I just thought, that whole idea of just engaging yourself in story makes is really
about active relationship. It's taking and giving back.
And people are interested in stories. So this episode is...
our brain responds to story. It catches on. Yeah.
So this episode is our conversation with Jim and Melissa. Again, we had a really nice dinner together, and we spent a really fun evening. They talked about stories. In this episode, there's going to be two parts to this. So in this episode, it's about adventures and survival. And so I hope you really enjoy these stories because we really had a great time listening.
Yep, they were really good, and we had a great evening together. So without further ado,
Episode 90, More Stories. So I've been thinking a ton about storytelling since our last podcast because we had this big conversation with our friend Tabitha, and she told the story of the hurricane, which I think you guys listened to, right?
Yes, it was very good.
So it's very funny. So this is Melissa and Jim. How long have we known each other, Jim?
Since high school, grade 9.
Since grade 9. So
when Pam was young.
That's like 10 days, 10 years, 10 days, 10 years.
Okay, let's count the decades.
Decades ago.
Not 10 decades.
1978
was the first yearbook.
Yeah.
Copy of 1978.
Yeah.
Somebody here's old.
Not me.
Not me.
We both turning 60 because I turned 60 in October.
And I do in August, so that makes...
Yeah, you're about pretty close.
We're very close in age.
I know,
so,
that's terrible.
I'm younger than 60.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm married down in age. So anyway, I have actually done a lot of reading about how important it is for us to be listening to each other's stories. And a few weeks ago, I don't even remember how long ago it was, we got in the car afterwards and we were just laughing about all the stories you guys were telling at your place that night. And we were like, we got to share some of these stories with our not so huge, but
loyal
listening audience. So I want to start by saying, what has been your biggest adventure?
It could be as a couple or each of us.
Well, I could do it one word, but then I'd be told where to put the microphone. We talked about that last night.
We did, yeah. We talked about it last night.
Dance classes? It's a big adventure.
Somehow I didn't think that's what we would discuss last night. Well, you were talking about the journey of our marriage.
Yes.
And I was sort of thinking that when we started our marriage, we weren't engaged for very long because Jim moved away to Ottawa and I was finishing college. So why would I start a career and then move? So we had like a 4 or 5 month engagement. And
then he moved away?
He had already moved away. He was gone at the beginning of the summer. And then I was working for the Ministry of Agriculture and Food in Vineland as a summer student. And we got married October the 5th. So we were in Ottawa. I was just 20 and Jim was 22, and we were by ourselves in the big city.
Wow.
And
so what anniversary is coming up for you guys then?
36. Yeah, 36 this October.
She's a very patient woman.
I'm a very patient woman, it's true. But I just thought, I've always thought that's the best way to start a marriage, is to be on your own. You only have each other to rely on. You have no family interference. You know, you got to make it together because you're all that you have is each other. We were poor as church mice. I mean, we were living
Where were you living in Ottawa?
we lived in an apartment. And a basement apartment. Well, it was a 4-story building, but it was partly below ground, and our windows looked out on the dash of our car, the grill of our car. And I remember before we were married, Jim called me one day and he said, "Yeah, I came home from work and there's bars on our windows now." So
we were at Baseline in Maryville.
yeah, so it was
which part of Ottawa?
So that's right next to the downtown experimental farm.
Oh, okay. Because our son lived in Ottawa. Like he went to Carleton.
Okay. Yeah.
So we know Ottawa pretty well because he lived.
Yeah.
They lived
west of the experimental.
West of the experimental
Did you work?
farm.
I did. Yeah. Yes, I worked at for a short time at what's the name of that flower shop? Fines Flowers. Yeah. And then I started working for a landscaper, Garden Creations. So I was inside in their design department. They're sort of a junior designer. We would measure sites and put them on paper, and then the owners would put the designs, and then we'd clean them up and make them presentable.
So it kind of explains why we have garden design the way we do.
Mm-hmm. And
kind of a little
what were
bit.
you doing there?
I was actually working for the Carleton Board of Education.
Oh,
So I started with Macintoshes back in 1984.
wow.
We were the second largest installed base of Apple outside of Apple itself in Canada.
in Canada. Wow.
Yeah, so I got indoctrinated into the Apple thing, even though my career has all been PCs.
Yeah, because DSBN is like PC.
Yeah, and I still have Apple at home because it just works for me. I do all my music stuff on it. I do the photography stuff on it. All my editing is done on
Apple.
On Apple,
Well,
it's just
the industry leader for all the
yes.
All that stuff, right?
Yes, it is, and it works for other stuff. I was always able to do everything else I did in my other professional life on a Mac and port it over to a PC with no problem. But
So how long did you stay in Ottawa?
11 years or 11 months.
11 months.
Yeah, we weren't there very long. I missed family. We both did.
Yeah, and then Thanksgiving, for instance. Here's your first story. Thanksgiving, I had
We
been
got married
working-
October 5th.
So it's your first
So not-
Thanksgiving a week later.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she's like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna stay and we're gonna go down to the Byward Market and buy a turkey." So we go down to the Byward Market, and of course,
It's like
there's no
noon,
small,
right?
There's no small turkeys left. So how big was the turkey?
22-pound turkey
22-pound turkey. And we get
For
home.
the two of you?
for the two of us.
We
That's
get
the only
home.
turkey they had. We needed a turkey.
And we get home, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, I really miss home. Let's go home." And I'm like, we had just gotten back from Quebec City, so I've been doing all the driving through Montreal, and Quebec City is lovely. I'm not a big fan of Montreal's traffic.
No.
We went around the south of Montreal.
Yes, we did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the way back. Yeah, we did. And so Melissa used to get car sick. So she took a gravel at the apartment. Before we're out past Le Quickie to get on Merivale Road, she's like... And so I'm driving, and I just keep driving. I don't even stop in Peterborough for a break. I just keep driving. About Toronto, she wakes up and she goes, where are we? And I'm like, Toronto, dear, go back to sleep.
So I did what I was told.
One of the few times.
So we get home, and my parents didn't know that we were coming because they didn't expect to see us. And my parents owned Beamer's Country Market at the time. So really, Thanksgiving was never really an event for our family because the market was open.
Right.
And so we worked, so it wasn't really a thing. I'm like, you know what? We'll take the turkey home. I will make a turkey dinner for my family. It'll be great. So we get home, and lo and behold, my mother, for whatever strange reason, is planning a turkey dinner. So she's got a turkey, and she's making the whole... So it was great to see everybody, but the turkey then went in the freezer.
We go over to my mom and dad's.
Yeah,
they had a turkey.
Well, that wasn't a surprise though, because your mother always had the dinner in advance. But yeah, so the turkey came back home with us, and frozen in the cooler, and very well traveled turkey. And every weekend he would take the turkey out of the freezer and slide it into the water bed next to us, next to me, and say, cluck, 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 turkey wants to be eaten today. So I'm like, you can't. To be fair, though, I mean, we probably spent our grocery allotment for that week, certainly on that turkey. We were like living very close to the dollar. So our grocery budget every week was $60. If it could be less than $50, then we could have pizza that week.
We remember that because at the end, when we bought our first house here in Welland, we would have $20 left at the end of because I was not working because I had, and maternity leave wasn't like it is now. You didn't get a year's worth of maternity leave.
You were done after 3 months.
Yeah.
And there was no one.
And I didn't go back in between kids. I didn't even get maternity leave for Sebastian because I never went and worked in between.
Right.
So we would have $20 left, and he was making $32,000 then at Brock, and our, we had $20 left, and we would say, "What do you want to do with this $20?"
Yeah,
this precious thing.
That's part of what she says is learning to do that together.
Yeah.
And how to survive that, and how to make your fun.
So his brother came for New Year's, I think.
For New Year's, Andrew came up for
finally,
New Year's.
we ate the turkey. We were having company. We had 3 people.
Yeah.
So we're going to eat 22 pounds of turkey.
So we cooked the turkey. We had this big feast of turkey. I made these TV dinners, wrapped them in foil, and we ate off that turkey for a long time.
Ottawa was good times. Ottawa was an amazing city because there was so much free stuff to do.
Yeah.
You could always go, and there would be something on the canal, or there would be something downtown. And we were there when the Armenian embassy siege happened.
Oh, wow.
Back in that's 85, 86. And
because that's
friends
when
of
I
ours
was first starting teaching for the board, 85.
Yeah, friends of ours came up, and we were down walking along Parliament Hill, and it was the first time ever, RCMP was guarding the Prime Minister's office and all the embassies with open Uzis, and that was such a shock.
Yeah.
For us, even growing up in the country, you use shotguns and hunting guns and stuff.
Yeah.
But to see this,
to be fair, it's even a shock to see it now. We went to Ottawa for Remembrance Day a few years ago, and we noticed that on the rooftops there are snipers.
After the shooting at the memorial.
Even before that, we had been up before that.
I think after the shooting at Memorial, but I think
even before.
it's a sign of our times, right?
My dad had 3 shotguns.
Yep.
On a gun rack over their bed, over my parents' bed.
One at least was loaded.
One was loaded for sure.
Because that's how it was to protect.
And they were not locked.
Yeah.
In. They were not.
Right.
They were just lifted off and go shoot the whatever it came in.
After the animals, yep. Yeah. It's,
Or shoot it off to make the noise and scare it away.
Yes, whatever. Yeah.
It's that was a very interesting period down there.
And then, so you stayed there for 11 months and then you got
and
a
then
different
I got
job.
a call saying we're hiring an additional technician down at Niagara South Board. You haven't applied.
Okay, so
you haven't applied.
Oh, you were tapped.
Yes, I
Okay.
was tapped.
By
People that we know. Some of the people we have talked about
okay,
previously.
cool. That's
And that was quite nice of them, and they said, well, can you come down for an interview on Saturday? And I'm like, oh yeah. And they came down and I did what I had to do, and
Right.
I've been with the boards until I retired, like you did.
Yeah,
So good career, not an easy career, but
No.
a long career.
and you worked hard.
Yes, we
You
worked.
earned your
Yes.
retirement,
Yes.
100%.
Yes,
'Cause
which
you
leads
did a
into
lot.
stories of survival.
Yeah, you 100% earned your retirement.
Well, thank you.
Because you worked
And so did you.
super hard.
So did you.
Yeah, we did what we thought was right, right? Like, I mean, I think that's where you can enjoy your retirement, because when I did my work, I did what I thought was right for
Yes.
the people that were around.
Yes, and that's important.
Right.
To have that feeling that you did morally what was right.
Yes,
Even
like,
though it might not be the popular decision,
No,
but there was
absolutely.
always somebody there in the background that would support you.
yes,
Or the politically, well, I don't know if I want to say politically correct, but the politically advantageous.
Yes.
Yeah,
No.
sometimes
There was-
it wasn't, but
Yeah.
it was the
No.
right thing to do.
No,
That's right.
Like,
Yes,
yeah.
it never is.
And I think sometimes, like, I actually was talking about this with a friend of mine this morning, that, you know, she was telling a story about the whole idea that I was told many times that my knowledge was intimidating for people.
But it is. But it is, Pam. But I'm telling you why it is, because I was told the same thing. Because I could process things so quickly and have a solution.
Yeah,
I was thinking too fast.
yeah,
But to be told that your knowledge is intimidating to put you in your place and to
That
set you
well,
back.
when I came back after
that's
my
all right.
what we call the incident,
the incident.
I came back and I was asked what my impression was. And I said, I'm sorry, but it's about egos and attitudes.
Yeah.
And that's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And they use egos to put you in your place.
Mm-hmm.
And I just
100%.
kept going because I knew what I was doing was right.
Yeah.
And in my case, it was about dollars, funding dollars.
Yeah.
So-
yeah. 100%. You
You know.
had a position.
So, yeah, it
you
is
could
what
make
it
a
is.
difference in the amount of money that came in
Yeah.
to support kids.
Yep.
Well, yes, and he could be truthful and get what should have been allotted, or he could fudge those
Well,
and
Well, I'll tell you, I remember that my story of the day is intensive support allotment, right?
oh, yeah.
And we spent hours at tables trying to figure things out. And all we would have needed at that point, and I'm just going to say this because I don't care, is people actually putting the EAs in the spots so that we could claim the kids.
Yes.
And they would refuse to do that for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, and I know a lot. I don't want to get into that stuff, but a
but-
lot of it comes down to unions and stuff, and
Yeah.
that's a big failure in education. I think there's. Sorry to get off on this topic, but
No.
there's two big failures in education right now. There's the union side of it,
Yeah.
that there are still some people who think it's like a 1970 trade union,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we are lacking sorely in true leadership. I don't mean management.
No.
I mean leadership
Vision,
and
passion.
inspiring people.
Yeah.
Well, I just finished reading The Song of Significance by Seth Godin. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
I'm going to give you this book. You will love it, because his whole theory is that in order to make a difference, like, significance is making a difference, right?
right.
And in order to make a difference, you have to care.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that you and I, no matter what happened in our lives, we cared about what we were doing.
And we had support at home.
Yes, 100%.
We had support at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that's very cool. I never knew that you lived in Ottawa. That's
Yeah, we lived in
very
Ottawa.
cool. It's a
Yeah.
very cool way to start your
Yeah, it really was. It really
Like
was.
that's a very cool way to start your marriage.
And we got to see Quebec City. We had a friend who was from Quebec City, and we went down for her wedding, and we were the only two non-French speakers at
Where
the.
was her dad from?
Her dad was from Portugal.
Yeah, I was going to
He was
say,
from
I
Portugal,
thought it was
and
from
he
Portugal
was
or Spain or
the
something.
Director of the Quebec City Symphony or something.
Yeah, something like
Some
that.
crazy thing. And
Something
here we
like
just
that.
knew Debbie, and we had a good time with Debbie and
Yeah.
Francois. And we down to Quebec City, and they showed us all kinds of stuff we hadn't seen on our honeymoon. And
But it was in March when we went there for their wedding,
it
and
was crazy.
I couldn't believe how much snow they get
Yes.
in New York, in
When we were
Quebec
there,
City.
like a few weeks ago, we're like, how do they go up and down those hills with all that?
Yeah.
The little subdivision they were in, it was like tunnels, like the snow is blown off the streets, I guess, and it's just tunnels. And then when we get to her house, there's kind of this pathway to the front door, and I said to Jim, "Oh, you should clean that up," because the wedding was at their house. The wedding reception was at their house. I said, "You should clean that up." So he gets the shovel and he's out there and he's cleaning and scrubbing, and he gets right down to the pavement. And
Overnight.
yeah, it took a chunk of time to get it done.
And overnight.
The next day, the groom shows up and he's like, "Oh, what happened with the pathway?" It's like, "Yeah, Jim cleared the path." It's like, "Yeah, well, I cleared the first 6 feet." Jim just shoveled off the last 6 inches.
And they got snow overnight. And that was the cool thing about Ottawa. I don't know how much snow was up there when Sebastian was there, but she worked downtown, and I'd take her downtown early in the morning, and there would just be this onslaught of little trackless vehicles, or at that time even the track bombardiers, and they'd be cleaning up sidewalks, and the whole city would be clean. And
they do that,
And-
and
They still do that.
like Zachary
Oh,
went
so-
to Carleton, so they have all those tunnel, like,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So he never really had to go
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Like they could wear their pajamas in and out because they could go through the whole university
Right.
in tunnels.
And,
But
and she used to drop me off downtown, and I'd skate all the way up to Dow's Lake, and then we'd go over to
Yeah.
our friends. And there was some nights it was -40, and I can
Yeah.
remember skating. She dropped me off. She said, "You sure you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I want to skate tonight." And I could remember still, you see like the commercials with Sidney Crosby and hearing the ice,
yeah,
and I heard that all the way down, and it's just
it's
magical.
it's sad to think though that this year they didn't even
Yeah, it
they
was
Yeah.
couldn't
too
even
warm.
open
Yeah, it was too
Crazy,
warm.
eh?
they couldn't even open the like, so it hits you about how the world has. So then when you came back here, did you like rent?
Yeah, we rented in Fenwick.
Okay.
We rented in Fenwick, and then
But it was too busy for us in Fenwick.
I can
Yes.
understand
So we had to
that.
move to Wainfleet.
So we had to move up to Perry Station, Pam.
I totally
Perry
understand
Station.
that. It's a quiet place out there
Yeah.
at Perry Station. I walked from the farm to the corner where you guys
Yeah.
like to concession.
We didn't even have to give you directions. You knew exactly
No,
where
well,
we were.
when I'm driving out there, I'm thinking, shoot, I waited for the bus on this corner, and the people that lived on the corner there,
Yeah.
on Perry Road and the
Yeah.
concession, they used to let us stand in their porch
Oh,
Oh,
really?
really?
wait for the bus.
Oh,
so
nice.
because I had
Gosh.
to walk from the
Yeah.
farm
Yeah.
out
Right.
to get the high school bus,
Right.
and then we would wait on that porch.
Well, Melissa's been doing some ancestry stuff, and it's been very interesting. So my grandfather on my dad's side was a Bernardo boy. So he came into Montreal, and he was supposed to be out with.
Do you know what
this-
that is, the Bernardo boy?
Yeah.
So in England, there was a orphanage. There were a series of orphanages. And I can't remember the names of the orphanages, but the person who set them up was a Dr. Bernardo.
Oh.
Okay.
So children who, would otherwise have ended up in the coal mine or on the streets were placed in these orphanages, and then some of them made their way to Canada. There's a beautiful, beautiful book out right now, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but it is about some of the stories of these
When you
children.
find it, we'll put it in the blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the name of some of these children that that made their way to Canada, and some of them were adopted into families and had loving homes,
Right.
and they stayed with those families just like
Right.
a solid adoption would be. Others, they came more as farm laborers, and some were treated well, and some were not.
Yeah.
And some might have stayed at one farm until they were,
Yeah.
of age, and some of them would be moved around to farm to farm. Sometimes even children were taken from their families in England or surrendered because they couldn't take care of them, never imagining that they were going to lose their children forever. But some children were lost forever from families that never really intended to give them up. So there's a whole series of things that
There's got to be a lot of.
yeah.
There's got to be books written about
there's
that.
books written about it. If you do a little bit
I'm
of
gonna do
searching
something,
on the
because
Bernardo
your
children,
Grandmother also is,
My great grandmother was a home child.
same
Okay,
thing.
same thing.
Same
The
thing.
Same thing. So
Yeah.
she was sent
Yeah.
with her sister. She was 6. Her sister was 8 to Niagara on the Lake, to the home there, and then farmed out to Waynfleet, and then she ended up marrying my great grandfather, who was a terrible person. But
Well, Jim's
So-
grandfather ended up coming as from a Bernardo orphanage, but the home child is the same
Yeah.
same thing. And he ended up getting he was sent into Toronto, and then from Toronto he was put on a train, and he got off the train at Perry Station.
oh gosh,
And then,
goodness.
and
I
then
know, right?
the Sider family couldn't make it there for whatever reason, and he slept overnight at the Perry Station, within a kilometer of where we're living,
Yeah.
Wow.
which is just.
Amazing.
And then he
He was adopted by the Siders, or
He was
No,
not.
no.
He was not adopted.
no, he worked for.
He
Yeah.
came as
I wonder
farm
what
laborers.
ciders. Do you know what the
No, I'm
first
not
name?
sure.
Because
but he-
cider is my family tree. I just
Oh,
Well, I can
wow.
probably find out.
You
we-
probably could.
Yeah.
She'll find it.
Yeah.
But he ended up marrying into the Simpson family.
Okay.
So
I think the
Oh,
Simpsons
okay.
were the
So-
third family that he worked
So-
for.
we're related to the Simpsons and the Greens and
Yeah.
the Kitchens, and
yeah.
it's like a big family
Right.
reef
And
out there.
On the other side, like Wingers,
Oh, Wingers, yeah.
like that's my
Yeah.
great grandmother on my mother's side. My mother was born in the Buffalo Mission
Really
as
interesting.
So
to the Bossert.
she's a Bossert, so she
Yeah.
was born in the Buffalo Mission, and the Welland sort of extension of the Buffalo Mission was over on Elizabeth Street,
2 houses down from where we
where
used
we
to
lived.
live.
Oh wow!
And so
funny, eh?
Her grandfather, my
Wow.
great grandfather, ran the Buffalo Mission,
Wow!
but her father was a gambler. Like he did all kinds of terrible things, and he actually committed suicide. In his just like crazy.
We could go into Melissa's family and talk about her one. Oh, it's
I've
crazy.
got a
but we're not-
shyster of
That's
a-
a whole other episode. We should
I
do
have-
some ancestry stuff and then.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should.
And then
get back together.
Ancestry is
Yeah.
Oh,
I-
because
I-
there might be a.
I started
Imagine if she's my
searching,
cousin
and
Charles.
most of my father's and my mother's family, with the exception of 2 lines, have been in a relatively small spot in Niagara for 200 years. So there's tons of stories and tons of
like
information.
Otto Moore, right?
Yeah.
I used to go to Otto Moore's and work on the Moore family
Yeah,
history
yeah,
with him, and there's a whole book written about the Moores.
yeah.
But
Awesome.
anyway,
It's just the best. I love it. Man, it just sucks you in, doesn't
it
it?
does.
Oh,
It does. And then our neighbor up the street did all this ancestry stuff for us and brought me this whole binder of stuff. And that's how I found out that my great grandmother was a home child. I didn't
Wow.
know that. And
Oh, fascinating.
it is fascinating.
Yeah.
We need to know our histories.
we
Don't we?
really
do,
do. And you know,
because-
the more I study my history and people, I feel like I know them now. Like
Yes.
people that I've never met, I feel like I have kinship
Well,
to.
Yes.
Well, the best part of this whole story with Melissa's family is her ancestors were actually Adam and Eve, and
True.
we know where the headstone is in Rockaway.
Yeah.
Oh, they
Yeah.
actually were
Adam
and
Adam
Eve.
and Eve Adam Beamer married Eve Bowman.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
that
well,
is
that's good. So that's where we.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
our
that's
roots.
That adventure took us everywhere. Now I want you to tell me your best story that involves music.
Well, probably recently. We have a friend who's a professional musician, and actually a couple of friends connections in that particular band now, which is the Downchild Blues Band, and our friend Jim Cass is the drummer, and I forget who you're the dealer for.
Well, I sell flowers, and my profession is selling flowers to florists and garden centers. And one of my customers, I'm chatting with her one day, and she happens to mention that her husband makes his living as a musician. And I said, "Oh, really? We have a friend that makes his living as a musician. It's a small world. Maybe you've heard of him. His name's Jim Casson." She's like, "That's the drummer for our band." And so her husband is Chuck, what's his last name? Jensen. And he's the lead singer for Downchild. So when we went to see them a few weeks ago in Toronto, and we went to visit them afterwards, I leaned over to Chuck, who's never met me before, and said, "I'm your wife's dealer."
And we get up to Jim, who we went to high school with, and he says, "I played in bands with these two when we were younger." And it's like, oh, that's awesome.
That is great.
Yeah, they would be the
group again?
The Downchild Blues Band. They are a legendary blues band in Canada, and actually the inspiration for some of the antics of the Blues Brothers came from Donnie Walsh and his brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah,
That's cool.
So while we're waiting to see Jim at the little meet and greet after, we start telling the lady that we met in line about how, oh my gosh, traffic getting in there. We left with 3 hours to spare. We were, wasn't it? Yeah, we left at 5 o'clock for an 8 o'clock show.
So
At 8:15, at 8:15, we finally get to Toronto, to the theater. So we're on the floor, but in the last row of seats. But we don't want to disrupt the people.
Right.
So
Thank you.
I kind of squeezed through, but Jim
They were
was
disabled.
He decided he was going to go over the back seat.
And I did.
So he did. But the people behind us are like holding their breath and laughing because they're thinking this is going to be great. But he got over, so it's fine. So I'm telling this lady the story there while we're waiting to see Jim for the meet and greet. And she said the first time I came here, same thing happened to me, but I was up in the nosebleeds in the very back seat at the very top of and I was drinking, and I'd been already 2 or 3 times. I didn't want to disrupt my, the people in the seats again. So I decided I would just go over the back. But she said, when you go over the back, like you just drop straight down, like there's not a solid floor behind you. So she says, I fell, and I'm being held by my ankle is wedged between the 2 seats. And the ushers.
Massey Hall.
And the ushers are behind me, are underneath me, pushing me up, trying to get my foot dislodged from the seat. And I said, yep, and now you have a great story.
Yeah, now you have a great story.
And it's always interesting if you can talk to people and get them to banter with you, what you can find out.
Well, I want to see this band now.
Downchild's good. They're good.
Yeah.
And they had Natalie McMaster.
Oh, yeah, we saw her.
And she was playing a part with their horn section, which blended right in. And when it came time for her to come up and solo, she played a really fantastic solo.
Illumina when they had
Oh, really?
Aqua.
Oh, yeah.
And she was pregnant at the time.
Really?
Still doing her dance.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, God, she's going to give birth.
I was jig the baby right out.
Jig that baby
The
right
two-step, yes, the two-step.
right onto the stage.
The two-step.
She was
Oh, and they had Daniel Lanois, who did...
And he's with Fenwick, isn't he?
No, that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy who produced the U2 records and the last Bob Dylan record and the last. To watch him on YouTube, the way he describes doing a recording session is just unbelievable. Yeah, it was just really cool to listen to him. And then there was Kenny the Blues Man, whatever he was, and he's this old black gentleman. And he comes out in like white pants.
Red sparkly jacket.
Red sparkly jacket, red sparkly hat, comes toddling out. But my
He was
Lord,
probably 80 if he was a day.
and Lord,
And
could
he sat
play
down
piano,
at that piano
and
and
it was just unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Some of these older artists like do amazing. But we went to see Heart.
Oh, really?
on
Yeah, that's
Wednesday
right.
night.
How'd they? Yeah.
It was Nancy Hart.
Yes, it wasn't. It
Nancy
wasn't
Wilson.
Nelson. It wasn't both
wasn't
of them.
Anne.
Yeah.
Because they've split,
But,
right?
yes.
And so I'm thinking that because they split the hits.
Catalog. Oh, they split the
Yes.
catalog.
And so some of the songs that we were like,
waiting
where's that
for.
song? Where's that song? I think
Yeah.
went with the sister.
Okay.
Right.
And so, and she didn't see, she's 69, but still.
Started to lose her voice.
Yeah.
It was amazing because.
Fabulous musician though.
Oh yeah.
Like she can play guitar like nothing.
Oh yeah.
And the last song that she did was a song that she had. It wasn't a singing song, but like a musical one
Oh.
for Eddie Van Halen. when
Oh
he-
really?
for-
Oh
And
She composed for a
him.
lot of artists.
yeah,
Yes.
she did.
yes.
And it was great. I'm not saying it, but the concert started at 8:30, and at 10 we were in the car.
Wow.
10 after 8
well,
or
and-
10 after 10.
And that's why
Right.
we didn't take the GO train up because I know they
It
have
would be
long
past.
sets.
Yeah.
I know they have
this
long
was
sets.
not long. We were shocked.
And they kept playing, and like Donnie Walsh, he's getting old and he's slowing down. But man, he
Wow.
was still
That's
playing.
good. That's
He was still
good.
playing. And
Yeah,
we-
all the rest of the band members have been replaced and they're younger, and he's he's there on a
He's the
chair,
guy.
right? He's on
the
a
guy,
stool,
man.
and
he was great.
Yeah.
he was holding his own, but the rest of the band was doing the moving.
Yeah. And so one of the things I've started to say is we've got to go see these people. When Charles and I were having that conversation tonight, we need to go see these artists before they're gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
And so we went and saw one of our local guys,
yeah.
Ian Thomas, lives in Winona.
Yeah.
And they were just fantastic. You know?
I mean, we saw Sarah McLachlan not too
Oh,
long ago.
wow.
She gave a phenomenal concert, like
yeah.
phenomenal. She has not, but Nancy Wilson was actually reading the words off a monitor of her
Wow.
own songs.
Wow.
She's getting to
And I
that
was
age,
like-
yeah. Well,
Yeah, if you're not
we're-
that confident, maybe you
Yeah.
shouldn't be
Shouldn't
doing.
be. I think she
Yeah.
should stop.
we are
We thought she
Let
should.
us
I
remember.
said to we were there because we as girls we used to go to Canada's
Mm-hmm.
Wonderland and see Heart. Like we did that a couple of times because we said, the last time we saw this band, we were on a blanket at Canada's Wonderland, right?
Right.
So it was
Right.
great, but I said I think we're maybe witnessing one of the last Nancy
Yeah.
Wilson.
Okay.
band,
and it's not
the,
easy.
it's the era, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
generation
Yeah.
of musicians.
And
Yeah.
and I mean we've always I'm music. She watches TV. I listen to music. I've constantly got headphones on and listening to music, which explains the tinnitus along with working at farms when I was young.
Yeah.
So you
But-
mean when you wear headphones and you have the volume high?
What?
It is hard on your ears.
Yes, it is.
Despite what
It
all
is.
the young people have said
Yeah.
for years and
It
years.
is.
Oh, he
And-
said it too when he was young. I said, when you're 65, I'm going to be shouting at you.
Well, you just shout at me because you got to have. You need to keep me in line. But
Good.
it's so we've decided we're going to learn to play a song. So I mean, we've got friends who are musical, and if we ever go anywhere and we need to learn to play something. So we've come up with I'm going to be by the Proclaimers. I'm going to walk 500 miles, and then I'm going to walk 500 more. The two guys from Edinburgh, Scotland.
Well, if you need keyboards, we're with.
No.
No, we need a bass player.
Oh, I think I could learn that.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, we're very good on
But
stringed instruments.
I do.
I can do it as long
Can you
as it's-
sing?
I can sing.
Oh,
sings.
the
I
two
can
of them.
sing baritone or tenor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Do you remember her
excellent.
voice in high
Nice.
school? Do you remember?
Yes.
She had a lovely voice.
Yeah, no, he sings. He sings
That's
well.
awesome.
And I think I could figure out the bass. Come on. How hard can it be? It's four strings.
It's E. It's like oh, you are going to insult bass players all over the world,
I
Pam.
just gotta say Sarah McLachlan when
That wasn't me, Melissa Wright. I did not have anything to do with that comment.
Sorry, Geddy Lee. She does not know what she's talking about.
The bass player for Sarah McLachlan was a young woman, and she was singing harmony and singing.
And walking all over that space. And
That is incredible. Because
There are some
to sing
really
harmony and play bass, and it is hard.
But you know what? To sing and do anything at the same time is hard.
It is hard.
It's incredibly hard, and people who can do that. And I mean, I was one of those, like, when I played with our buddy Mike Cooked with him, it was like, oh, Jamie, can you drum? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I can drum. And like, well, can you play rhythm guitar for this? And I'm like, yeah, tell me the chords, I can play rhythm guitar. Can you do the bass? I said, well, as long as you tell me the root chord, I can figure out where on the bass, because I took violin lessons when I was a kid.
Yes.
And so I'm just kind of like this all over musician, and then I got into sound production and all this other stuff, and it's just been, I've had a very unique life experience like that. Yeah. It's been crazy, and I learn everywhere I go. Like when I worked with the media folks, I learned so much.
Yeah, Jacques.
Yeah, and Jim Merrick.
Jacques
Dubois, yes.
I would call him and say, Jacques, I need some things. And he'd be like, yes, whatever you need.
My favorite Jacques Dubois story is when we moved us down, and I know I'm talking bored, and I didn't mean to do this.
That's all right. He was a great guy.
We were down in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and it was that old Niagara district, and there was a panel that would buzz. And so I talked to the plant guys, because one of the jobs I was asked to do was try to figure out what needed to be done and blah, blah, blah. Make sure the asbestos and, all that stuff that I could do as a manager. And so he's like, oh, this panel, Jim, it's buzzing. And I'm like, really? Next time it doesn't, let me know and I'll come out and look at it. So he goes, and I look at Merrick and go, and we go in there, and he goes, look, it's buzzing. He says, it's electrical. I'm sure it's electrical. So I put my hands up on it and go, oh! He goes, oh, tabernacle! I jumped. Oh, Jacques was such a sweetheart.
I love that guy.
I had so much fun with those people.
And it was usually like the old DRRC, and he was in the opposite building, right?
Yep.
You'd go over and ask him for something, and he'd be, because then I was doing workshops all the time with Dale Willows from Boise.
Yep.
I did 52, I think, workshops.
Holy jumping. That's a lot. Oh. Yeah, they were busy.
And
they were good folks.
And the other guy I loved there was, I know we shouldn't be talking about this, but what was it? He was like the principal of the DRC, the guy.
Oh, Fred?
No.
Fred Plato?
No, he was
and you've lost your audience.
And I've lost your audience. Yeah, completely. But anyway, all I remember is go in the file room, and there were these dead mice laying on the floor in the file room, and I put a sign on them that said, they drank the water.
after the earthquake, the water went bad. Yes, it did. No, seriously, it did.
I remember
that was crazy.
They drank the water.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Right there. The file room door.
That's awesome.
Oh, God.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm going to give you one more little music story before you move on.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
And this Jim wasn't there for this. This happened to me as a teenager.
All right.
As part of the E.L. Crossley Marching Band.
Oh,
you were right.
I was in the E.L. Crossley Marching Band.
So I was a pom-pom girl.
Okay, I was a glockenspiel
player. A glockenspiel. Well, at least you would have. As a pom-pom girl, I had, the big yellow and blue pom-poms and the little skirt.
Yes.
A little ruffly skirt. So my sister was living in Toronto, and this Eaton Santa Claus parade, the 3 buses headed for the parade. And I had prearranged that I would be allowed to stay in Toronto in my sister's care after I didn't have to go home on the bus.
Okay.
It was all above board, all prearranged.
Yeah.
So we kind of finished at near the Eaton Center. And then we gathered on the buses and went from there. So we've stopped playing. We're on the sidewalk. We're climbing into the buses. We're all getting ready to go. I see my sister on the sidewalk So I tap Mr. Walker on the shoulder and I say, there's my sister. I'm going with her. And he says, okay. So I've been now released from the band. Yes. But I did not immediately go to my sister. I said goodbye to my friends. I don't know. 3 minutes later, I turn around. My sister is no longer on the sidewalk where I thought she was. So I waved goodbye to my friends. The bus pulls away, and I start to look for my sister. Can't find her. Oh. So I'm now in Toronto, right downtown, by myself. Can't find my sister.
In a pom-pom.
In my pom-pom. So I'd be really difficult to spot.
And cold.
Yeah, it wasn't really cold yet. That wasn't really, I don't remember that. But there was a girl who used to go to our school, who moved to Toronto, who came to see the parade. So I was with her and her friends. So the three of us are like walking around the blocks and back and forth where my sister said she would, no cell phones, waiting for my sister to, she's going to be. So like a lot of time has gone by, like an hour has gone by, and we can't find my sister. Couple hour goes by. My sister calls my mom and says, I can't find Melissa. I've lost her. I'm looking for her. I can't find her. Maybe she got back on the bus and came back. So my mother goes up to the school to meet the bus. No, she told me she saw her sister. We left her in Toronto. So my sister has now called someone from her church, and there's 2 or 3 people have come. They got the whole little squad out looking for me. Nobody can find me in my pom-pom uniform. I don't know how hard they were looking. They've called the police. Still, I cannot be found. It's starting to get like 3 hours on. My friend Jody is like, I gotta go home. So really it was, I can remember
Did you ever find
distinctly seeing a car stop right in the middle of an intersection and my sister launch herself at me out of this car. Finally.
Music story.
Wow.
That was my
Mr. Walker.
Yeah.
Dale Crosley Band. Brian Walker, right?
Yep.
Wow.
Those were good times.
Yeah, it was just totally different when we were younger. It's totally different when we were younger because society has changed so much.
Oh yeah, but I just remember when I first became a resource teacher and I was given a Palm Pilot, and then I had a flip phone.
Wow.
But you remember that Palm Pilot? We plugged it into the charger and it went crackle, and we fried it, and it was worth a lot then.
Oh.
Yeah, but I got another one. I got a second one, but it was like I took it back and said, I don't know what happened, but this is fried, and they just gave me another one.
Yeah.
I don't even remember using that thing, like how I'd used it.
I don't remember. Lists.
Lists of things and places I was supposed to, appointments I was supposed to.
It wasn't great.
Was not great. So
but
not a Mac product.
Not a Mac product. Not a Mac product.
I've used stuff I like and stuff I don't like of Apple. I've got my.
Well, I'm not an Apple person.
I very often will have a Post-it note on my phone, and my kids say, "Mom, stop what you're supposed to do with your phone."
That's okay.
So, are we good? How are we with with the filming?
Oh, I already had to restart it.
Oh, you started it. Okay. So do we want to stop? We'll do one more story and we'll stop for cake. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with episode 91, More Stories, Part 2 with Jim and Melissa.
Looking forward to it.